Welcome to the Business and People podcast. I am your host, Walt Bayliss, and on this episode, I am unbelievably excited, thrilled with the interview with Nick Halik, the thrillionaire. The man who has self-funded through the NASA astronaut program. He's a best-selling author. He's played rock music on stage with Bon Jovi and others. He's a world traveler and an absolute inspiration. In this interview, we talk about his successes, his mistakes, and his message for anybody that's looking to really find the joy in their life. And some of the things that Nick's been able to tick off the list have come from an incredibly determined spirit as he looks up to some of the early explorers and really makes the point that your life is yours to be directed. Enjoy, get inspired, and get fired up on this episode of Business and People with our special guest, Nick Halik. So, Nick Halik, thanks so much for joining us on the show, mate. I really appreciate it.
How you doing, man?
I'm great. I'm doing really well. Now, Nick, as I look at your history, you describe yourself as a thrillionaire, and I've got an amazing video of you playing rock guitar on an active volcano. What does an average day look like for a thrillionaire?
Yeah, I mean, well, first up, the media is the one to sort of dub me the name, the thrillionaire, in relation to like how I live my life. I've always been that contrarian, I guess. Like, I mean, for me, it was always like, build your life plan first, build your business plan second. So I've always been chasing that experiential living, for example, and because, there's a mosaic of what I do. There's this like, kaleidoscopic tapestry, I guess. It really depends what day of the week you ask me in relation to what I do. Because, I've got multiple hats. I mean, but essentially, I live a 5-day weekend lifestyle.
Yeah, and, fantastic.
I've got crazy lofty goals, and some of the original goals that I wrote down as a young 8-year-old with nothing to lose, having drafted my screenplay, and I've been the actor, the producer and director for the last 38 years plus. I've just been acting out my life. And, it's amazing when you emotionalize something, when you internalize it on a cellular level, and when you socialize it to the outside world where they hold you accountable.
Nice.
When you've lived something long enough, when you've believed something long enough, and it just brings, it brings great joy, but it also gives me a strong sense of purpose. And, that's how I get shit done.
Absolutely. Do you know, I think, mate, the more people that we speak to, that ability to have clarity that they are in control of the next chapter of their life, I think is a gift that if you can give that is brilliant.
Control.
Absolutely. Yeah. When did it kick in for you? Like, that list that you wrote as an 8-year-old of the 10 things you wanted to do and being able to, as you said, direct the play of your life and achieve those things. What was the turning point? When did you say, do you know what, I can actually do this?
The paradigm shift was at age 8. Here's a crazy thing. I had a paradigm shift. I don't even know what a paradigm shift was, obviously.
Sure. Couldn't spell it.
Yeah. But I think that gave me purpose.
Yep.
Because here's an interesting thing, right? Chronic allergies, debilitating asthma. I was homeschooled for the first 10 years.
Wow.
Now, it wasn't homeschooling in the traditional sense, because Mum and Dad would be working. My dad was a truck driver working for a company called Pioneer. He will come home 1 week of every month. So he spent a lot of time out there, laying asphalt as Australia was basically expanding its frontiers, whatever, And Mum was a seamstress, working 6 days a week, 12-hour days. So really, my sisters that really raised me,
You're right.
So, my parents gave me a set of the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Wow. And
a set of Tintin. This roving reporter, traveling around the world, going to space, submersibles, discovering the Amazon jungle, Inca temples and all that kind of thing. And, I am the love child of the Encyclopedia Britannica and Tintin. Because, so it's always been that sense of adventure. And going back to when I was medically confined to my bedroom, my first strategy was working out how to get the hell out of the house.
Sure.
Sure, yeah. And I was, at that particular point, I was living in Australia. So originally made in Greece, raised in Australia. So I was Australia's pharmaceutical poster boy.
Wow.
Basically my immune system was basically pharmaceutically hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
And then with drugs, I was basically under duress. I guess I was, forced to take whatever to. So that was my initial strategy. And once I worked out how to escape the the confines of my medical circumstances. You know, it was, at that particular point, it was just like in a medical brain fog, you know, medical brain astigmatism.
Wow.
And then, you know, seeing life in the outside world. And it wasn't until I hit orientation day at school. Now, here I am, about 10 years of age. I've now ventured into the outside world. I'm going to school. I've joined academia for the very first time.
Fantastic.
And I realized that I was very different to the other kids.
Okay.
And that was my, hold on here. And I said to my parents, I mean, it just feels really strange. Like I can't relate to these kids because my upbringing was the Britannica. And it was almost like for the first 10 years of my life, I was in the orbit of literature that was basically transmitting a high frequency of wisdom.
Wow.
Compared to an academic textbook that was really just, you know, at a real basic level kind of thing. And plus, I knew my geography around the world. I could name every city around the world. You know, I mean, I had such a lust for life and travel, and but I also had the set of 10 goals that I wrote down as an 8-year-old, which became my compass in relation to what I was going to dedicate my life towards.
That's unreal, mate. That's really amazing. And I think as people were listening to the introduction here, you've done some incredible things already. I talked about, you know, self-funding through the NASA program. You've played on stage with Bon Jovi, self-made millionaire. I mean, the list is going on. And I can see the 5-Day Weekend, now best-selling author of the 5-Day Weekend, which is a brilliant book, by the way. Congratulations. What would you say is your biggest achievement, Nick? If you looked across the scope of where you are now, what's the thing that you say, you know, that's my proudest peak right now?
You know what? I've yet to experience that, which is, but I do look forward to the joys of fatherhood when I finally get around to it.
Okay.
Because I want to be that beacon of light. I want to be that lighthouse and illuminate the path for young kids to follow. For me, that'll be my crowning jewel, I guess. You know,
the one to look forward to.
You know, because right now, I mean, I'm still in that selfish pursuit because I'm currently on I'm working on the Explorer Grand Slam right now. And I've got 2 more mountains and I've completed the Explorer Grand Slam. The Explorer Grand Slam is summiting the highest mountain in the world, the 7 summits.
Wow.
On the first attempt.
Wow, okay. You don't get a second shot, all right.
And skiing the last degree of the North Pole and the South Pole.
Wow, cool. That's the Grand Slam, okay.
The last 100 miles. So I'm currently working on that. So I've got 2 more mountains and I've done the Explorer's Grand Slam. But I'm also working on completing every country in the world. So I'm up to country 155 now. And according to the United Nations, there's 195 countries. So once I complete my 195 countries, which I've got 40 more countries to go, and my Explorer's Grand Slam, I'll be the only person living who'll have completed all of that.
That's
so
fantastic, mate.
if that's out of the way, then I can dedicate expediting the family.
That's awesome. That's a terrific resume, mate. Like that's an incredible list to tick off. And one of the things that I'm keen to understand as well is, as a success-driven individual, as somebody who at age 8 had that paradigm shift that I can control my life, I can move forward. I'm sure, no doubt, that you've had peaks and troughs along the way. What's been the biggest a mistake moment for you, and what did you learn from that along the way?
Definitely. Look, the amount of times that I've ended up in a financial cul-de-sac.
Okay.
You know, but it's literally, having building a financial, circular driveway, just going round and round in circles. You know, literally like a ship, like a ship in the Atlantic Ocean without a rudder, just churning water, going round and round in circles. You know? But I've been it because I didn't perform enough due diligence, and I wasn't patient enough. In most cases, I was, like, for example, I mean, I love real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a multi-family apartment real estate investor, and I do a lot of strategies in the financial markets. So a lot of time back in the early days, my days where I was basically paying my dues.
Sure.
I was forcing the market play as opposed to allowing the market to come to me.
Okay.
Whereas or I was creating a product, not having researched the marketplace, for example.
Sure. And you found yourself in deep holes as a result?
Absolutely. And you able to get out of the hole, so stop digging, right?
Right. Yeah, sure.
But it's also the the skill set of knowing how to exhibit behavioral flexibility to adjust your pitch, adjust your angle, and change the lens of your perspective of how you view the market, for example, or whether there's an emerging trend that you need to be in front of. So you basically create the protocol, the platform, and then allow the market to come to you. You know, and I give it. It's kind of like if you're like a real estate investor. You know, find some good land near an emerging city and wait 10 years for that thriving metropolis to catch up to your land.
Oh, I get it. Okay, so you're putting a spike in the land, and you're saying, right, this is mine now, but it's not. We're not going to let it catch up, and it's going to capitalize when things catch up, and that could be in technology, it might be in medical, it might be physically in real estate, it could be in anything.
But it could be incorporated in business, the financial markets, and real estate. It's the same. It's understanding and deciphering and unraveling some of that topsoil, for example, and drilling deep in a particular premise or a product or a service, for example.
Nice.
And a lot of it is it's understanding my intersection with the primal instinct of human emotion, which is greed, fear, and indecision. That took me a few decades to really, really master.
Okay.
Because.
And now that you have, mate, what insights does that give you?
Well, it's when you understand greed, fear, and indecision, where the fear of losing money is greater than the greed of making money.
Right. And
understanding the indecision and that lackluster, human sentiment. It's repetitive, it's cyclical. And for me, I've been able to basically draft out the economic cycles for the next 10, 20, 30 years based on 200-year historical data. Yep. And I've pretty much been orchestrating my life in relation to my investments based on things that I wrote down 10, 20, 30 years ago. For example, 2008, I had already called that back in the late 1990s. Yep. In 2015, I was telling everybody, get ready, the Dow Jones is going to hit 27,000 points, and it's understanding different cycles. Like right now, for example, we've got 18 months left in the American cycle, the American economy, before we enter like a recession between 2021 and 2023. Then 2023 to 2024 will be the start of the greatest bull run up until 2027. Just understanding cycles like that. So, for example, it's knowing how to basically be in cryptocurrencies right now for the next 18 months, then exiting, and then pivoting into real estate, because real estate will have bombed by 2021, for example. So it's understanding the convergence of different marketplaces. So, if you're speculating in cryptocurrencies, you can then pivot into old school assets where you can weaponize and deploy your cash flow into assets that give you more passive income. And understanding too, during a recession, for example, in America, there's going to be 105 million Americans that will be renting. Once again, it's understanding where the emerging markets are. And when I invest, for example, I'm always looking at who's got the biggest market. Is the middle class the biggest market? And do I want to be there, or do I want to be slightly below it? Because when they lose their jobs, if I've got real estate below them, they come down to my level to rent, for example. Yeah. So it's understanding the demographics, where the jobs are going, where the jobs are going to be exiting. And then knowing as an investor to foresee and predetermine, for example. So these are things about human emotion, things that I've learned along the way, I guess.
It sounds to me like that early exposure to the encyclopedias and Tintin have cultivated that fascination with history and with people and with the technology and moving forward, and it's really pushing you forward on a wave.
Absolutely, definitely. I love traveling around the world. I was in West Ghana, West Africa, a couple of years ago, and within 6 months, I created a business in West Africa, a consultancy business.
Wow.
One thing I realized, China was developing all of West Africa. So they were bringing in billions and billions of dollars, developing new roads, airports, infrastructure, housing projects. But they didn't have enough individuals on the ground to assist them.
Right. Yeah.
I basically created a company to be able to liaise with Chinese construction companies,
Fantastic.
Things like that I would not have invested in unless I had actually traveled to that location. And then, once again, just the age-old thing, just solving problems, providing that background, that foundation where you can solidify and provide a solution to some other company, for example,
That's unreal, mate. I think it's incredible, and it's probably a good metaphor to think about the fact that you're so driven by the space race as well, that you have that ability to look from outside the globe and see what's happening on a bigger picture. I think it's fascinating, mate. Nick, what do you think is not being discussed in the world enough right now?
I would say there's a lot of individuals, you have this proliferation of academia,
Yep.
And I think academia just needs to be exposed for what it is. It's a factory assembly plant for the sole purpose of producing tax base, and not really adequately providing the foundation where you can service and fund your lifestyle. See, for a lot of individuals, they're working Monday to Friday, they get parole for the weekend. And how many individuals do we know in our lives that count down the days until the weekend?
Absolutely.
Or they're counting down the months until the next vacation because they despise their life. And then they're counting down the decades until retirement because they despise their lives.
But do you feel that that's because they don't have the
awareness?
Yeah, the awareness, the tools. They don't have the education or the exposure to being self-generating.
The abilities. They're not going out to. I mean, look, here's the thing, right? In your early 30s, most individuals in the adult world develop financial diabetes because their financial immune system's been ravaged by all these free radicals and liabilities, just totally overwhelming your anxiety and your stress levels. Yeah. And eventually financial diabetes metastasizing into financial cancer. And now you're 60 years of age, you're forced to work until 65, 72 years of age. I mean, my point is this, too many individuals are too heavily reliant on government or employers, for example, or they've got an employed business where they just basically pay for their own job. They're running an adult daycare center. They're paying everyone else. They pay themselves last, and they've got 100% accountability.
Yep.
I mean, it's a job, But how many individuals? And I think the real question is, have you designed a life that you don't need a vacation from?
Yeah, perfect.
And how long can you withstand your lifestyle if you stopped working right now? See, how many individuals just earn money, after tax dollars, and then service their lifestyle, their liabilities over here.
Yeah.
And not enough awareness, and I think the millennials are probably more economically doomed than the prior generation. Because they
have even less of that education, mate, or?
Well, less of that education. They're more wired and indoctrinated into the system. In other words, they're more institutionalized and a lack of neuroplasticity, for example, right? But they also have they spend a lot of money. Like this is a generation that won't own a car. They're going to Uber around. They're not going to own a house.
Yep.
They're going to just keep on renting, where the rent encompasses 65% of the salary.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're eating at boutique restaurants or Whole Foods, for example, because they want their organic eggs straight from the farm to the table,
So and there goes the seeds of financial wealth.
Absolutely over here, And so it's a whole different generation.
Yeah, for sure.
The current generation, if you look at the current lot of baby boomers who are retiring, and they're going to be living off their savings, just withdrawing monies from a bank. And unfortunately, their money's invested in the bank in a savings account at 0.02%, which is demoralizingly embarrassing, and where the real rate of inflation is about 7%.
Yeah, so they're losing 6.8 a year.
Absolutely. If you weigh in, technological obsolescence and fees and tariffs.
Absolutely.
It's just eroding the passion, that inflation, that invisible assassin.
Absolutely.
People do not understand about weaponizing and deploying cash flow into assets, And the real test is this. If you got hit by a bus and you're in a coma, how much money are you really generating?
Yeah, how much is still coming in?
It's the coma test. I don't recommend you get hit by a bus, but it's a real test.
It's a good measure, isn't it?
How much money are you generating whilst in a coma?
Yeah, good measure.
If your entire livelihood of the family is heavily reliant on you, your aptitude, your physical, your health and awareness and whatever to report to a workstation, a cubicle, or a factory floor. But for a lot of us, we just don't get it. And Walter, you know this. The quantification of real success is doing more of what you love and doing less of what you hate.
Absolutely.
That is the real quantification of success. And for me, build your life plan first. Your life is here. Everything must revolve around your life. Because if you don't find time for your life, you fail to appease yourself. You know, you're going to negate, you're going to be calibrating on and reverberating on negative energy over here. And you lose that spark, that wowfication, that blingification, in relation to what makes you tick,
Yeah.
There's a part
I love it. I love it. Nick, how would you take that forward to a class of graduating students right now? So these are kids that are coming into the system, and we can argue the case that it's already too late for the message. They should have been educated 10 years ago. But now you've got an opportunity, you've got a stage, you've got a microphone, you've got a room full of graduating students. What's your message to them?
Go overseas for the next 2-3 years and find yourself.
Nice. Okay. They're going to say how. What should I look for?
Here's the thing. In 2004, Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook. By 2007, he had no idea what Facebook was going to become. He still didn't know what the business model was going to be.
Yep.
He had a platform, and he allowed the market to dictate what the business model was going to be. My point is, you don't know either. Go out there, find yourself, because the two most important days in your life: the day you're born and the day you discover why you were born.
Nice.
Go out. Find yourself, aerate yourself, ventilate your mindset over here, internalize, seek the wisdom of other individuals. Find successful individuals, and ask them relevant questions. Like what have been their greatest challenges? Find a multimillionaire or somebody doing what you love and work for them for free for a couple of years.
Nice.
Before you look at the monetization of your life.
And is that sort of, if we take that Mark Zuckerberg example, is that allowing the marketplace to determine your platform personally?
Absolutely.
Yep. Where can you make the biggest impact?
Allow market, but allow life.
Yeah, sure.
Your direction. Because here's the thing: go out there, and allow life. Allow the people's influences to guide you, to illuminate, to provide you a bit of a spark, and then to give you the confidence to go out there and then accelerate on that particular spark in relation to what really interests you. Because look, I do a lot of guest lecturing at Harvard University. And the real irony there is I have no college degree. I finished my VCE, I finished high school, and then I bought a one-way ticket to Hollywood, California. That was the music days, right? I had nothing to lose. If I bought a return ticket, I was giving, basically it was a sign of weakness, right?
Sure.
But a one-way ticket, I just had to make it work. When you go overseas for 2-3 years, a one-way ticket. Do not buy any ticket back to Australia or back to your respective country. Just keep on traveling. And when you have enough social equity, enough emotional equity, and you're calibrating, and there's certain energy, life force, for example, life force energy that powers your soul, and you have a greater understanding and a better meaning to what you truly represent, then come back and then just drill deep and just get cracking and just go all in.
I love it, mate. I love it. That's an incredible message to take forward to the youth, to be able to find what life has got in store for them and what their true passion is. Mate, I want to wind forward with your life. If your 60-year-old self turned up in your living room right now, what do you hope your 60-year-old self would say to you that's happened and finding you right now, what you've got to do to get there? What would that 60-year-old version of Nick Halik be saying to you?
Never get complacent.
I like it.
There is complacency, where you're comfortable being uncomfortable. So what I do is I purposely have something to look forward to every month. It's something grand, something every month. Every 6 months, I have something really, really special planned.
Cool.
It's really important that you disrupt yourself, because sometimes you can get really cozy. You can get into like a new relationship, for example. Or you've just basically bought a 30-year mortgage, for example, I'm all about minimalism, If I can't walk away from my life within 30 seconds, I'm carrying way too much baggage.
Wow, interesting.
Most important thing for me is my laptop, my cell phone, and that's it, and my passport.
Yeah, cool.
I don't have photos around my home, for example. Like right now I'm traveling, but everything's in a hard drive or backed up in a cloud. But if I'm going to buy something, it's going to be something that is timeless and will still look amazingly hot in the next 20, 30, 40 years. I don't just buy something for the sake of just buying something,
Yeah, sure.
I'm an investor, It's got to be an asset,
Yeah.
If it moves, it's going to lose your money.
Absolutely. I completely hear you, mate. So that 60-year-old version of you is going to tell you to keep pushing. What would you today, knowing what you know now, looking back on that kid who bought the one-way ticket, who, you know, had the goals and the dreams, what would your experience now tell your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, definitely. Just keep pushing.
Nice.
Keep pushing and challenge the status quo, and never, never, never assume, you know. For me, I ask questions. I drill deep, man. I mean, I'm probably the, you know, and probably another really important thing is the gamification of life.
Tell me about that.
You know, where I gamify things in life, you know, where, for example, like, you know, if you look at social media, the biggest disease right now on social media is comparisonitis.
Yeah.
We're comparing life to somebody else's. You know, somebody else is who is in Mykonos and traveling around the world, or in Yarra or Capri, or they're in Morocco kind of thing, and they've got these happy poses and selfies and whatever too. I mean, but really, you know, you know their life is not like that. You know?
Yeah, sure.
I compare myself with one individual, and that is Nick Halik. July Nick Halik is comparing himself with June Nick Halik. Same with my finances. I mean, you know, the Kaizen principle, small incremental steps. You know, if I can raise my income levels on a monthly basis by an extra 3% every month and comparing it to the previous month, I mean, once again, it's the gamification of life. Immerse yourself in the way you gamify things in life. For me, it's walking that gauntlet. I love challenges, you know, because if I fuck up, I mean, you know, in life, you'll always be judged of how you strengthen your resolve, how you've managed to recover. So, for example, when I'm meeting like a really successful individual, I'm asking them, man, what were your biggest fuck ups? And what did you do differently? And how did you pivot out of that negative predicament?
Sure.
Really important questions to ask, as opposed to, well, how did you make your money? Who gives a shit? How did you lose your money is a far more relevant and significant question.
Correct, because it can teach.
Because you can use that solidification to strengthen the rebar of your financial life.
Unreal, mate. Unreal. Nick, I've got only a little bit left of time with you, and I know you're heading off on travel. I've got a 60-second challenge, which I love asking our guests. And so this is my 60-second challenge to you, Nick Halik. A friend of yours who you haven't seen for a long time tells you they've just started out on their own. They finally got into that entrepreneurial world. They really admire what you've done. What advice are you going to give this friend for their best chance of success in 60 seconds?
Yeah, definitely. Find their smile.
Nice.
Just smile. What puts a smile on your face? What brings a tear to your eyes? You know, emotionalize your goals. You know, written words, they leave impressions. Spoken words just evaporate. But internalize the goals, emotionalize it, and socialize the goals.
Nice.
Absolutely different.
That's good advice. You've got like 20 seconds left. Anything else you want to share?
But just finding that juice of life, finding that smile, man. Being around vibrant individuals at all times, you know, and some of the parameters as to who you invite into your life.
Bringing the joy in what you're doing, not chasing the time clock. Have there been any, you said the written words sink into your mind, whereas spoken words evaporate. Has there been any books or podcasts or media or videos that you've watched that have made a significant impact on your life other than Tintin and the Encyclopedia Britannica?
Yeah. I mean, look, there are certain movies that I love. For example, I've always loved movies, you know, with it's a triumph of the spirit. For example, like one of my favorite movies is a movie called Gattaca. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Gattaca.
Yep, love it.
Basically about a guy's quest to go to space, and he was born with a flawed, you know, DNA, for example, and it just shows all the lengths that he did in order to go to space. I love that story, you know, and it's all about, you know, just scaling up and doing whatever it takes and cutting every sign of a trick, you know. But I also love movies like Papillon.
Okay.
Which is, once again, the human spirit, where a guy gets falsely imprisoned, you know, he escapes 8 times, and now he's in solitary confinement for 10, 20 years. And then finally, he's now 85 years of age, and he escapes one more time, his 9th attempt, and he makes it to freedom.
Wow.
He never gave up. But definitely my 2 favorite movies, Papillon and Gattaca. Once again, similarities, the human spirit, and never ever giving up.
I love it. And who's someone that you look up to as a role model, sort of that embodies that same spirit that you're talking of?
For me, it's all the explorers that have come before me. All
Nice.
those individuals, those outliers, those disruptors, those individuals who dare to be different, those individuals who were very idiosyncratic, had their own persona, and they pushed the boundaries. They pushed the boundaries. They were not monolithic with their thinking. They were never tethered to conventional thinking. They just went all in on life.
Fantastic. Give me a name of somebody living or dead that fits that profile.
For me, living-wise, I will say Elon Musk, Peter Diamandis, for living-wise. And those who, I would say, individuals from the past, probably the story of George Mallory.
Right.
George Mallory in 1929 was actually one of the first individual to summit Mount Everest. About 30 years, about just 22, 23 years before Hillary and Tenzing did. And George Mallory, studied the story of George Mallory, and they found his body about 27,000 feet. So he basically had already summited Mount Everest in 1929. Hillary did it in 1953, maybe. But the story of Sandy Irvine and George Mallory, where they found their bodies, and they were coming down, they were descending. But just that story of these guys in 1929.
I'll look it up. That sounds fascinating.
Mount Everest.
I'll look it up.
It's such a beautiful story.
And again, the human spirit winning through. Nick, what's next for you? My last question. What's next for Nick Halik in terms of, you mentioned every month you're doing something that's exciting. Every 6 months you're doing something that's out of control and really something to really look forward to. What's the marker that we're going to be able to see somewhere, be it a year, 10 years in the future for you, that we're going to say, wow, I heard it first on the podcast? Yeah,
well, right now, a buddy of mine, we've actually, do you know El Chapo? He was a big
cartel lord, yeah.
Mexico. Anyway, so a few of us got together. We acquired one of his airplanes.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the drug running planes.
Does it smell funny?
Sold by the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, at an auction.
Wow.
We're utilizing that plane for the next 2-3 months, and we're going to explore every country or island in Micronesia.
Fantastic.
14, 15 countries that I haven't been to, and we're going to be doing a lot of diving into Bikini Atoll. So, courtesy of El Chapo's plane, we're going to basically do all of the South Pacific, and we're going to just gallivant from one island and springboard to the other island. So that's in the next 2 or 3 months, and that plan has a very interesting history to it. But like I said, so I'm very, very close to completing the Explorer Grand Slam, the Volcano Grand Slam, and in the next 4 years, I'll have completed my 195 countries. And I think after that, I'm probably ready for alien abduction, because by then I've done everything on planet Earth, So for me, I'm looking for the next exploits, and I would love to be one of the first colonists to colonize Mars and just literally just walk away from everything here on terra firma.
When you get up there, mate, you have to set up a bookstore, and the only book they stock will be 5 Day Weekend.
Well, here's the thing. My first book, The Trillionaire, there's a library of 9 books on the International Space Station. In 2008, when my first book came out, 2 books went up to the space station on the TMA 13 mission. One book was actually thrown outside of the spacecraft during an EVA, and it basically orbited Earth a couple of times before burning into re-entry, right? Which is probably the first book in history to basically orbit re-entry back into Earth. The other book resides in the library.
In the space station.
Astronauts emailed me saying, "Hey, I just read your book.
Loved it."
You get an email from space. But
I love it, mate. I love it. Nick Halik, the Trillionaire, buddy. Thank you so much for spending some time, for sharing a message of inspiration and as you said, personal spirit to achieve whatever they want to achieve and to chase the smile. I absolutely love it, mate. Congratulations on your success so far. I look forward to hearing of the 195 tick off, the Grand Slams, and of course, seeing all of the success in the world, man. Thank you so much for joining me.